Kurt, it is awesome to see you again. It's amazing. It's been just a little bit over 2 years since we recorded the last time. Anything happened in 2 years?
Oh my gosh, so much has happened. Yeah, I just not with the world at large in my own life, but I don't have any new children. They're all 26 through 33. We have four children, two grandsons. So no new family members per se. Well, actually, I had a new son-in-law and daughter-in-law. So yes, we've had two weddings in 2 years, and I just finished writing a book and put on a few more pounds. So aside from that, not much.
So let's talk about Called to Empower. So I sent you a note just a couple of days ago. It was like, hey, whenever you're ready, let's record on the podcast. You said, how about Friday at 1? And here we are, Friday at 1. And then quickly realized, wow, the book is already available on Kindle. I had thought what I read before was a pre-launch thing. So you've got print books that are going out. But why Called to Empower? What's the background for the name?
Yeah, great question. First of all, thanks for having me on again. It's great to see you. I believe, without getting preachy to you or your audience, my faith means everything to me. And whether someone has a strong faith or not, whether you believe in God or not, I believe that we all have to understand that we're not the all be all and end all. There's something greater than us out there, whatever it is. And I think it's a beautiful thing when we can understand as individuals why we're here. We all have a limited time on this earth. We don't know how long we're going to be here. And for me, I truly feel like I've been called to empower. That's where I get the most joy in life, when I can bless, serve, and empower others, whether it's my wife, our children, our grandsons, those I'm blessed to teach or coach. When you can look at someone and bring a smile to their face, and even greater than just that moment, and gifting them with whatever it is in that moment, when you can help empower them and help them to realize the strength they have within that they didn't know they had. That's what it's all about. That's what lights me on fire.
What do you want to be remembered for?
Being a Christ-like servant leader. Yeah, someone who is passionate. I jokingly say when I speak at places, I'm an expert at nothing, and that's more reality than joke, but I'm passionate about everything. When my days are done and I'm put 6 feet under, I hope that my family and friends and people that were coached by me or taught by me or just met me for the first time know that I have a passion for life and a passion for empowering others.
Awesome. And we're gonna get into the book, and we'll also include a link to the first conversation that Coach Hines, that Kurt and I had back in May of 2022. Because it's evergreen content. It's leadership, it's coaching, it's empowering others, it's working through adversity, it's all of those things. One of the ways that I ground myself is and get that solid sense of there is something much bigger than me that is out there, is looking at mountains. So we live out in Arizona. There's a mountain not right behind our house, but in kind of the area. It'd be considered a foothill. It's maybe 2,500 feet if you were to get up to the top of it. But looking at mountains and being on the ocean. So like being where you are in Coronado and being able to get out to the water and see that, you just see this vast thing that is so much bigger and so much more calming. So very, very powerful stuff.
Calming, speaking of the ocean, calming and yet so powerful at the same time.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know how many people have ever caught a little bit of a riptide, but it's amazing how quick you can move away from where you were. Right.
And how weak you realize you are, no matter what shape we're in, when you're in the power of the water.
One of the things that I thought was pretty cool. Well, yeah, I mean, the power of the water. So it looks calm, but think about how, who is it? Bruce Lee said, be like water, right? Be like water. So water can break through rock, break through stone, cut through stone, and at the same time, be soothing and relaxing. So it's pretty powerful.
Life, yeah.
So I want to get into the book. And one of the things I really like about the book, and most folks who've been listening to the podcast for a while know that writing a book has been high on my list of things to get to, but I always find reasons to avoid, like whatever it is. And you don't want to say procrastinate, but I reprioritize other things, and then the book doesn't become the priority. And from a style perspective, one of the cool things when you pick up the book, and again, I just picked up the book recently, so we're going to have a little bit of fun as we go through a couple of different chapters, and you're going to hear me look at them at the same time that I'm asking Kurt about what he was thinking about when he wrote these things. But in chapter 9, the I feel like I'm reading from the Bible, chapter 9, verse. So, life lessons we can learn from the installation of a new football field. That's pretty cool. The football field that's here in our neighborhood, not in, where Sean played when he went to high school, as Basha High School, and they are in the process of laying a new field. They're like they'll have it out there, field turf ready to go for the season. But life lessons we can learn from installation of a new football field.
Yeah. So first of all, thank you so much for buying the book and reading it. I'm getting my first copy tomorrow. It comes
Okay.
in. So I haven't had a
Oh,
hard copy
so
in hand.
we're gonna have even more fun. So cool.
Yeah.
So what does that mean to you? What you just said, what I just quoted, and then I'm gonna
Yeah.
get into the timeout because I think the timeouts are fascinating, and I'm gonna ask you that
Great.
question.
And I don't remember off the top of my head. I've memorized, what I wrote, but we had at Coronado High School, let's call it 5 years ago or so, a new field installed. Now, I've been playing football since I was in second grade, coaching for 27 years now. I have never stopped to think about what goes into gravel, and not just the gravel, but the different size and shapes and levels of gravel they put on top of that and everything that went on it into the process. And I remember walking around. I'd be there for summer workouts. We couldn't use the field, but I'd be walking around the track watching what they were doing and see them gluing down the seams for the yard lines and the hash marks and all that. And it hit me like a ton of bricks. I'm like, man, this is just like coaching or parenting or teaching or owning a business. So few people understand what's going on behind the scenes. They see the surface, they see just the top layer of grass and go, that's a beautiful field. Or they see your bottom line sales in business or your test scores in the classroom or your win-loss record for a team. And for me, it's a beautiful reminder for myself of, hey, before I judge someone else, let me stop and see if I can dig a little deeper, literally and figuratively, to see what the layers are behind that story. Because there are some people I've judged in the past. I'm like, man, I just hate that guy's stand on this, whatever it is, or that woman's stand. And then you start to get to know their history and what they went through, and you start to feel empathy and compassion and tolerance. I'm like, wow, if I had only known. So that's where that tweet came from.
It's awesome. And then the timeout that you have. So the way that Kurt lays out the book, again, fascinating. It's a tweet. So something that's posted socially on social media, and then it's context, a story around it, and then there's a timeout at the end, which is a reflective question. And a thing that's really important to me is learn, think, act. Learn, we take information in, think. We have a question that helps forces us to reflect on it. That reflection should help us connect the dots between kind of what we know and what we're learning. So it relates, and then we determine what kind of action do we want to take. So Kurt's timeout on this one was, what's one thing you used to think was easy until you had a chance to see it done or had the chance to do it yourself?
Yeah.
Powerful stuff, right? Like how many times do we go in and say, like, I'll run into this inside culture challenges inside teams that I might work with, and the big culture challenge might be, we think of our revenue team. It's like, what, they always get what they want. They're really loud. They're always asking for things. They are really pushy. They get paid a lot of money. They're always driving the nice car. All of these things, and we don't take the time to ask the questions around, like, hey, why do you do the work you do? What'd you learn? How long have you done this? You don't just fall into an organization and all of a sudden are amazing as a head football coach or as a running back or as a sales leader or as someone who plays in the band, whatever. There's a lot of stuff that goes behind getting that person up until that point. And it's hard to empathize with them until you either go through it or start to learn through some of their experience.
Absolutely. And for me, I remember now, and I thank you again for that question because
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about this until I wrote that chapter a year and a half, 2 years ago, whatever it was. And for me, that biggest for that timeout question is what's something in our life that we didn't really understand until we did it ourselves? Parenting. Yeah, I'm the middle of an older brother, younger sister,
Uh,
and my younger sister Shannon, love her to death. She's had a hard life. She's been in and out of rehab since I think 14, and she's in her late 40s now. She's had a very, very hard life, and she's overcome so much and still battles with a lot. But there was a moment in my young adult life. I had children, but They were young. I think our oldest at the time was maybe 6 or 7. And my parents were spending countless money on rehab for her and therapy, and she would go away for 6 months and come back and then go away again. And I just thought it was just a horrific waste of money for them. And just I remember we got into an argument where I didn't talk to my parents for a year. Now I called them every week and they wouldn't answer the phone, and I refused to give up. And by the grace of God, we healed that relationship for so many years before my father's passing, and I have zero regret and zero remorse about that. But the argument was on me trying to tell them, hey, Shannon's not gonna get through this. She's not gonna do this. She's not gonna do that. And I had never had a teenage child, let alone a child that had struggled with addiction and depression and all these other things. And I can only imagine now, as a parent of young adults who are 27 through 33, I had no idea what I was talking on. And if I had just stopped and dug deeper and said, Mom and Dad, why are you doing this? What behind it? And because as a parent, for anyone that's a parent, you never give up on your kids. You never stop loving them and trying to do what you can for them. So there's a lot of different things throughout my life that I can think about the installation of a football field and then laugh at myself and go, if I only knew then what I know now.
Well, and on a positive note, like you said, you got a couple of pounds to lose, and you realize how yeah, it's so easy to do, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, right,
It may be
exactly.
simple. It is not easy. The
Exactly.
All right, so I'm gonna move ahead. I'm gonna go to chapter 19, and we're gonna read this together. So chapter 19, 10 keys to great leadership. 10 keys to great leadership. Know your why. Share your why. Define winning. Love those you lead. Help others find their why. Build relationships. Give your all. Demand others give their all. Empower others. Create more leaders. What's leadership to you?
It's a verb. It's an action. It is servant leadership. It is, I think, all too often in society, as we talked about this, Mike, it could be in coaching, it could be in business with your families. I think somewhere along the way, we thought society just said, hey, they slapped the title leader on our door, on our email, whatever it is. And we just sit back and just watch the workers work. And it couldn't be farther. I see, love the smile on your face. It couldn't be farther from the truth. That's when we have to roll up our sleeves and really serve others and create more leaders. I've been on a staff before, coaching staff, as an assistant, where the head coach was egotistical maniac that didn't want to delegate anything because he wanted to be the expert in everything, and didn't have playbooks for the players because he was afraid that if they transferred somewhere else, then they would take the playbook. And there were so many things, and they were winning games. The guy knew football, but what he didn't understand, in my opinion, and it's not gospel, it's just my opinion, was that leadership is about serving others. I want to bless, serve, and empower those that, in the example of coaching, that play for me, that if they ever do decide to transfer, whether it's because they want to go to what they think is a better school or mom and dad move or whatever the case may be, I want them looking back at their time with us in our program saying, man, they did things right. They empowered me. They got on me in the right way. They pushed me. They encouraged me, and they held me accountable for my actions and all that stuff. Yeah, there's so much to that.
I'm going to force you to do a timeout. When was the last time you empowered someone, and how did it make you feel?
Literally seconds before we hopped on. I was blessed. This is my third of 4 podcasts today. I had two earlier prior to this, and the individual Chelsea that had me on before that, she had just like you're empowering me now and blessing me now by being able to share this. Some of her questions that she had asked me, she just started getting teary eyed, and just she was just smiling, and that just lights me up. It's just I remember getting off that podcast, and I'm sitting here. I have a clock on the wall behind where my computer is, and I didn't want to end the conversation with her, but I knew, A, I was very excited to speak with you, and B, I had committed to speaking with you. So I was thinking to myself, oh, I don't want to have to say, Chelsea, we have to wrap this up. So fortunately, just about 2 minutes before I hopped on with you, she started, Coach, last question, and then we talked. So it happened just moments before hopping on here, and for that time out, I've been very blessed with. I have a when I say I have a heart for serving others, that doesn't mean I'm better than anyone,
Yep.
but that just lights me on fire. Like when I have an opportunity to speak in front of an audience, or a few years ago, just before COVID, I received a private message on Twitter that said, Coach, love your stuff. We'd love to fly you and your wife out to the Bahamas and have you speak. it seemed to me like one of the emails you get from someone from Nigeria saying, "Kind sir, we want to put money into your account. Just give us, whatever." And I didn't think it was real, but I responded, said, "Hey, please just email me, my business account." And it was real, and it was for ADT Securities. And they flew my wife and I out there. I spoke on 3 different mornings, and it was funny because I didn't want to talk myself out of an opportunity to A, go to the Bahamas, B, share with others, and C, have a great paid for vacation. But I remember asking the gentleman that reached out to me on a Zoom like this and his boss, and I said, not trying to humble brag here, but I'm a Division 4 high school football coach in San Diego. I played Division 3 college football, never played in the NFL. And it was a kind of an imposter syndrome that I was struggling with. I said, but why me? And their answer is something I hope I never forget. And they said, you're relatable. And they said, so often people in life, and average, and this is not a negative thing, but average people, those are that aren't celebrities and millionaires that are just rolling in more cash than they know what to do with, want to hear from people that they know, hey, I'm just like that woman, or I'm just like that man. If they can do it, I can do it. And I take great pride in that because I know who I am and whose I am. I know I have great strengths and great weaknesses, but it empowers me when when I have the opportunity to just share anything with someone else that I feel they'll take something away with them.
And I love how on in the tweet you ended it with like leaders create leaders, create other leaders. And James Kerr has a quote in a book called Legacy, which is about the All Blacks, the New Zealand rugby team. And his quote in there is leaders create leaders. And I've kind of modified it. I kind of an iteration of it. Leaders build leaders. If as a leader, it is your obligation to help empower and enable that next level of leader that's out there. As if you don't, we're going to continue to have this void and this lack of leadership that we have in our communities, in our state, across our country, and across the world. So keep being a great leader, keep empowering people to be great leaders, and you'll be amazed at how you feel
Yeah.
and what they tell you about how they feel. Now, the other thing, Kurt and I already talked. We know that he's got a hard stop at the top of the hour, so we're going to make sure that he gets out there and is able to make it to the next one of these podcasts. And do a search for Kurt on Spotify or on Twitter. You'll find the content that's out there. And I mean, a lot of the stuff that we're going to talk about today, you could find in other places. The cool thing about this conversation is you get to hear it directly, and you also get to see kind of what the questions that make, or the things that make me curious about the kind of information that he's out there sharing and doing the work. I mean, it'd be hard to watch game tape if you didn't play the game, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's completely different. Yeah, there's a difference between, I tell our players all the time, there's a difference between watching film and studying film. You
Awesome.
know,
What's the
how
difference?
often as children are when we were younger, are we sitting in the passenger seat of the car, going to the same place for years, then we get our driver's license, we have no idea how to get there. Because we were watching the things pass by, but we weren't really studying the path that our parents took to get there.
we we went through. We've one of our kids is getting ready to go. He's going to swim at the University of Hawaii. So he's going to make this
Wow.
transition from going from high school to D1 college. And
Congratulations.
thank you. And it's we don't know what we don't know. He doesn't know what he doesn't know. And he was one of those people, one of those kids that didn't pay attention to anything. And then once he had keys to start driving a car, like had no clue how
Yeah.
we're just going to get around. That situational awareness is critical. How many times are we just going through the motions of just going from thing to thing to thing without operating with intention?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, unfortunately, I think the great majority of people in life are on copilot. They're
Yeah.
doing just that. And they don't do it with any ill will or bad intention, but they just kind of wake up, do the same thing, and just go throughout life. And I sometimes I feel I'm living that, what was that movie, Groundhog Day?
Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
But I feel like I'm living in the best of ways. It's just one year rolls into another of teaching and coaching and living life and blessing and serving. And I hope I don't, but if I die at the end of this podcast, or if you don't hear from me, something bad happens, I lived a life well lived. It's just I truly do feel like one of the most blessed people I know, because I get to connect with great people like you, and I get to teach and coach, and It's unbelievable. Yeah.
Describe what's a good day. Like if you hit, let's say you had a checklist of everything you had to do in a day, and you hit on all those checklists. What's on the checklist? Like what's a good day? What's a good day? What milepost are you going through?
Yeah, I'll start with the summer mode because I love summers.
Okay.
Waking up with my wife and I say prayer every morning. We've done
Yep.
that for 30 years. Say prayer in the morning, prayer at night. Get in the shower, listen to some worship music, go to football practice. I love that. I love practice. I love getting to pour into the young men and see them fail and help them understand that that's not a bad thing. I tell players all the time, the more we fail Monday through Thursday, the less we fail Friday night. So go to practice. If I'm disciplined enough, get a good workout in before I go home, have a good lunch and help clean up the house a little bit for my wife. And she comes home and then we just go play pickleball or tennis or go for a walk or a hike and then just relax. I mean, I love the ocean. Have you been out here to San Diego?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Have
Coronado,
you,
we've been out to Coronado a couple of different times, mission a couple of different times. And then I went to high school up north. I was in Laguna Hill at Laguna Hills High School. So
okay.
our beach was Salt Creek. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So you know how beautiful
Yeah.
it is. My favorite beach, it's just about 25 minutes from here is it's in La Jolla, but it's Windansea Beach.
Okay.
So it is if I can sprinkle in a little stop at the beach for 3 or 4 hours, I'll throw that in there too. So that's a great day. But for me, really, Mike, any day, even if it's just my wife and I, because sometimes for Sunday, we're like, "Hey, we got nothing going on, let's just spend time together." And sometimes it's surrounded by family, and sometimes it's going with friends or whatever. But if it's a day where I know that I can make someone else's day better, then that's a great day for me.
And think about that. Like there so many of us fall into the trap of doing the same things over and over again. But those things are scrolling Twitter or scrolling Instagram
Yep.
or it's his life rather than planning and
Yeah.
designing the things that we want to do. And all of those things that you just described, family, faith, football, impact, those are all things that happen in that one-on-one human connection where you're able to look across at somebody else and you're able to see
Yeah.
somebody else. So you can design for this stuff regardless of where you live or how you operate. You can design for it. You may not be able to make it out to Coronado or make it out to La Jolla to get out to the beach, but you can have your own beach locally. For me, it's getting out on the golf course. I go walk the golf course and I could see I get the background of the water, the mountain, the green, the contrast, and realize, hey, there's something much bigger than me that's out here.
Yeah. Absolutely.
The okay, so it's hard to be great if you're, and this is awesome. Everybody likes a good. I forget you teach elementary school. Are you
Fourth grade.
what grade?
Fourth grade.
Fourth grade. Okay, so you may have to help me with the English. I love a great acronym. It's hard to be great if you're G, going through the motions, R, resisting change, E, easily distracted, A, avoiding the difficult, T, taking more than giving. Tell me a little bit about that one.
Yeah, being a teacher also, I enjoy a good acronym from time to time. It's a great reminder to me that just, you know, out of that whole each of those letters there, the A is the most important for me.
Okay.
Avoiding, I forget how I wrote it in the book, but
Yep.
avoiding the difficult or avoiding the challenging, whatever it is.
Yep.
I think as parents, we with the best of intentions, enable our kids instead of empowering them by trying to avoid conflict, trying to
Yep.
avoid or eliminate for them challenges. We email our sons or daughters coaches because they're not starting or they wanted more, balls thrown their way or whatever it may be. And I think when we try to eliminate the challenging or the difficult situations in life, we're eliminating and slowing down the chances for success. Excuse me, because I think so often we think success and failure are at two opposite ends of the spectrum. And the longer I live, the more I realize they're just so intertwined because my greatest successes in life, personally, financially, relationally, in every walk of life, has been through facing hard times, facing challenges, and learning and growing through those, not avoiding those. So I think if we want to be great, those are step-by-step things we can make sure that we are doing or not doing to help us achieve greatness in however we view greatness. You know, one of the things I had shared earlier was coaching is all about winning. And the individual I was talking to kind of looked at me, kind of tilted their head. I said, well, for me, it's not the winning on the scoreboard. And that's important because you want to be competitive and I owe it to the young men and young women I'm blessed to coach to make sure we're competitive when we go out in that field, to make sure that we have the pieces in place and the individuals know what they're supposed to do. But when I say coaching is all about winning, leadership's all about winning. If you can win the hearts of those you're blessed to coach and lead and get them to buy into the direction you're going, the culture you're building, then your success is going to far outweigh anything that happens in the pool for your son or on the football field or the court or rink.
Well, it's amazing. I think actually, let me ask: do you think that teams struggle with understanding what their definition of winning is?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I think 99% of the time, and I'm saying this from personal experience, it's because leadership didn't define for them what winning is.
Yeah.
In my first 2, maybe 3 years as head coach, I knew my why. And this was in one of the earlier tweets or paragraphs, chapters. I knew my why, but I didn't share it with everyone. And then like the year later, I'm like, oh, I need to share my why. So I shared what my why was, what winning was, how I defined winning. And then I realized, wait a minute, that's good for me, but what about them? I need to help them find their why. I need to help them define what winning is in their lives. For me, winning as a husband, one of my best friends out here, there was a job that opened up 4 or 5 years ago, and he's like, Kurt, you got to apply for that job. You got to. I'm like, it's further away from home. He's like, yeah, but you'll make so much more money. I'm like, and? And he looked at me. I said, Mike, and his name's Michael. His name's Michael. I love everything about him. I said, and he's like, you'll be making easily 6 figures more. I said, but I'll have less time with Jill, less time with my children, less time with my grandkids. I won't be able to keep doing X, Y, and Z. I'm like, that for me, that's not how I define success. For me, success as a husband and a father is being present. Success is having them know that they can come to you to celebrate the victories in life and come to you to help them navigate through the challenges in life. So I think, yes, I think all too often we as leaders don't define what success is. And it's not enough for us to know what it is or just have a mission statement once again slapped on a wall somewhere and say that's our mission as a company, as a school, as a program. It's is it something that we can translate easily enough where they can understand it. And I'm excited because I was meeting with one of my assistant coaches yesterday, talking about our first week and a half of practice coming up soon. And day one, we're going to talk about our culture. And I think as leaders, we need to be able to define our culture. We need to demonstrate our culture. That goes back to the verb, acting out and living it. And we need to demand that everyone that is in the same boat is rowing in the same direction. Because we all know that's not always the case.
How do you define culture?
It's a living, breathing organism. And it's funny, Mike, because when I was a head coach in New Hampshire, it was a completely different definition. When I took over to become the head coach at Coronado, we have the North Island Naval Base in Coronado.
Yep.
I love our military. I don't like our government, love our military. You love our country. I love your shirt. And with the challenge with the naval base is it's a revolving door of players and coaches that come and go. And very rarely we have a young man will move in. I'm like, hey, fantastic. And they're there for 4 years. More often, my experience thus far has been they move in and mom or dad get transferred somewhere else a year or two later and they're gone. Happens with players and coaches. So for me, culture is it's a living, breathing organism that needs to be tended to each and every day. And it's your identity, it's who you are. But it's something that is once again, and I'm guilty of this, of hey, thinking, hey, let's put relentless on the back of our t-shirts. Or let's put, and I've had these and we still have them. Let's put 1% better, because that's our motto with our football program. I think all too often we fail on diets and exercise plans or financial plans, whatever it is, because we have this long-term goal and it's so unattainable and out of reach. We don't get there because we miss the magic and the beauty of getting 1% better every day. So as awesome as I think those little sayings or catchphrases or words are and can be, that's not what culture is. Culture is your identity day in and day out and who you are, when others are watching and when they're not watching. It's your lifeline. It's who you are.
Yeah. Has the potential to piss people off, but
Love it.
I'm good. We get irritated with our government. We get irritated with our government. And yeah, these colors are very important to me. The flag is very important to me. The vision and the belief of our country and the direction and the experiment that we're working through is important to me. If you are out there expecting somebody else to do it for you, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Why are you wasting your time? Why are you wasting your energy? If you sit there and wait for it, it could happen. But if you go out there and do it, you can actually start controlling the narrative. You can make the work happen. You can lead. And my definition of leadership is how we move forward. That's it. Simple. How we move forward. We as everybody. We could be me, myself, and I. It could be the entire team. It's how we move forward. And the cool thing about forward is forward could be any direction. But in order to get forward toward wherever you're going, you have to have a view of what winning is, which is what Kurt's been talking about here. So you know what? Get pissed off at the government, get irritated, get mad at people who tweet crap out there. But if you're not in the game, if you're not in there doing the work, if you're not making an impact, shut up.
Yeah. Amen. I'm going to give you a fist bump right to the screen here. I completely agree. I think it goes back. I think it goes back to Mike to what you said earlier about how people are. I don't think it's a bad thing if you feel like you're living Groundhog Day, day after day after day. If you're passionate about that, if your days all kind of roll into each other and you're loving your life, go for it. Every so often I hear one of my children talk about a high school friend from back in New Hampshire, like, yeah, they're just a townie now. And I remember saying to my son one time, like, Brock, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like, they're a townie. If they've never left their small town and they're happy and fulfilled, that's phenomenal. Not everyone needs to go across country and everything. It's just as long as they're fulfilled. If you mentioned about people just kind of scrolling through their phone and watching other people live their lives, I think way too often by design, people are trying to influence us to just be happy with that. Be happy with your little screen. Be happy with just kind of doing this. That's your exercise, scrolling. And then there are those of us who I think it's a blessing, understand that being on your phone and scrolling is not a bad thing if that's something you do in moments throughout your day. But live your life, get out there and live.
Yeah. Jen and I've had the conversation because she's noticed it a couple of times where I'm walking through the house and I'll be scrolling on my phone. Well, I'll be scrolling on my phone because I'm taking a break from what I was doing right here and I'm getting away from it in one way, shape, or
Yeah.
form. But now I also am cognizant of, hey, what's the impression at the house? Now we can have that conversation around, hey, watch out. Like I noticed this. So on what I do now is I just leave the phone in the bathroom. Like on the weekends, the phone just stays in the bathroom. This is a relatively new thing for me, so we're kind of working through it. But it just stays in the bathroom, and then I can go scroll on it when I'm in the bathroom. Get a little too much
Yep.
information. That's the reality. We're human beings. We all do this stuff.
Absolutely.
So I could go in there and I could scroll when I'm in there, but when I'm out, I'm present.
Yeah.
I'm in the game. And when I'm here and when I'm in front of this camera, in front of this microphone, in front of this whiteboard, I'm in the game. I'm present. When I go walk down the hall, sometimes I just need to check out. And every once in a while, my dog will come up and either one of them will bounce me and kind of bring me back in to reality. But be careful about those things that you get caught or you get attracted to and say, am I being attracted to this because someone is attempting to manipulate me or attract me to the thing that they're driving? Or am I attracted to it because it's my mission? It's part of what I want to achieve. It's my objective. And if you don't know what that mission is, then feel comfortable going out there and testing a bunch of things. But to the point on the game film, you cannot reflect on what you're going to do.
Right.
It's not possible. You have to
Yeah.
do it and then reflect on it.
Absolutely. And I also think with social media, I think it's the same thing with alcohol
Yeah.
or something else. And what I mean by that is if you're going to that, whatever it is, social media, alcohol, to avoid reality and to escape reality, there should be some red flags that go up in your mind and your heart. If you're doing, because no, hey, I enjoy this. This gives me a chance just to relax and just do this, whether it's a glass of wine or scrolling on your phone or whatever it is, and only we know the truth behind that, because people can justify it. But once again, if at the end of the day, if we can look ourselves in the mirror and be like, you know what, today was a great. I went to bed last night exhausted, and my wife and I said prayer, and then I couldn't fall asleep right away, even though I was exhausted. But I kept on thinking, like, what a great day it was. And yesterday was kind of the day I talked about. I had football practice, got a little workout in. I had a coaches meeting. We had some 7-on-7. Came home, spent quality time with my wife, having dinner and just talking, and we watched a little bit of TV. But yeah, I think we can lie to ourselves as much as we want, but if we want to be great in life, we've got to reflect and be honest with ourselves and say, hey, is this really bringing me joy and bringing me closer to my mission of being who I want to be?
So I'm going to throw another time out at you and say, what steps? This is yours from that chapter. What steps can you take right now to bring yourself one step closer to greatness. So what's a
Yeah.
step you could take right now to bring yourself one step closer to greatness?
Do something that scares you.
Okay.
Yeah, to get back to the A and avoiding challenges, I forget how I said it,
Yeah.
avoiding the hard things.
Yeah.
I preach it all the time and I didn't always practice it, but trying to be a better leader myself. When I go into the gym to work out, whether I'm working out with my son or one of my daughters or my wife or our team, I become more and more passionate about making sure I do at least one exercise, one lift where it's more reps than I feel comfortable doing, more weight than I safely, but more weight than I feel comfortable doing, going on a hike, going a little bit higher, a little bit further, a little bit longer than I thought, because that's for all of us. That's exhilarating. That's I love that. And I love, it happened just a few days ago. I was putting some weight in the bar for deadlifts. It felt really good. And I was like, all right, I'm going to go back to a certain weight I had done in college. And I failed. And I was pissed. No one else was in the weight room. I had my music blaring and I was pissed. And I remember looking by the mirror and I'm like, I can't believe I'm even sharing this. And looking at myself just dripping with sweat. And I remember looking at myself and I just smiled. I was like, this is what it's about. Like, this is what it's about. It's about in relationships. It's not always the weight room. And sometimes having those hard conversations with your child or your loved one, your spouse. Hey, this may not be an easy or a comfortable conversation, but it needs to be had. And that's what it's about. Because if not, we're just existing.
Just going through the motions. That is
Yeah.
that is awesome. I mean, there's nothing like throwing weight around and pushing yourself into situations that create stress, whatever it is. It could be the cold plunge. It could be the throwing weight around. It could be making that call. It could be making that call, asking that question. All right, Kurt, I need a number. Pick a number between 1 and 45 and try to not do one of the numbers that we'd already talked about so far. Give me a number.
Let's say 44.
44. All right. So if you spoiler alert, there's 45 chapters to the book, 44 quotes that are in here. And the quote for this one is kind of tied to what we were just talking about. Dear adversity, dot, dot, dot. Dear adversity, dot, dot, dot. Why?
Yeah. I remember I did a video on this and it was talking about, it was kind of like, it's kind of corny, but so am I. Kind of like writing an apology letter to a former relationship or someone that you had a relationship with. And I remember, and I'm paraphrasing here because I don't have my copy yet of the
Yeah.
book, but talking about, apologizing to adversity that for years I ran from you, for years I tried to avoid you, for years I just tried to disassociate myself with you, and saying, now I realize that you are my much needed friend and confidant, and you're someone I need to be successful. I think my wife and I in 30 plus years of marriage now have had seriously, and we talk all the time, 4 or 5 really big fights.
Okay.
I can remember the details, I think, of 2 of them, 1 or 2 of them, but they've helped shape the relationship we have now because I also, unfortunately, I would never mention names, have family members and friends who've been married much longer than my wife and I have, or were married then got divorced because they weren't willing to have that hard talk, that adversity embracing moment when you say, "Come on, adversity, bring it in, give them a big hug." I think we needed. I don't think. I know I need adversity in my life to help me to not just stay stagnant at where I am in my physical health, my mental health, my spiritual health, in relationships, in anything. Adversity is not the enemy.
I strongly believe you will be challenged with the adversity that you can overcome. You'll be challenged with the
Yeah, I
adversity
like
that you
that.
can overcome. You'll be tested in different ways. You know, friends in high school who were tested in ways that were completely different than I was tested. One of them lost a brother during his freshman year in college. His freshman year of college, his brother died in a car accident. I'm fortunate enough, oldest of 7. Every one of my brothers and sisters are still around. We dealt with adversity like divorce. We didn't deal with adversity of loss and losing someone inside the family. So I think there are challenges that you will all go through in this level of adversity that you'll face. And I really like so the timeout is, when are you going to write your apology letter to adversity, and how liberating will that feel? How will you feel when you say, hey, you know what, this thing was something that happened, not to me but for me, and
Yeah.
move things forward. And granted, I understand there's a lot of, all of us have dealt with some level of adversity that we either will share publicly or we will not share publicly. We will hold back or we'll put out there. Adversity sucks, and the journey through it will put you in a better position going forward to help create the person that you, not only that you are, but the person that you'll become.
Yeah. Well, and for me, embracing adversity, it's kin to making a conscious decision. Am I going to choose to be a victor or a victim? Because
Yep.
as you mentioned, we all go through things in life, and whether it's the loss of a child or all these horrific things that you mentioned, you're the oldest of seven. It's just the odds that all of you are still healthy and thriving. That's phenomenal. That's such a blessing. There's going to come a time for all of us, as scary as it is,
Yep.
that we lose a loved one, whether it's a spouse, parent, child, whatever it is. And we all face adversity. My wife, and I share openly some of the stuff she's been through. I'm not going to go into details here, but when she was a young woman before we met, went through horrific adversity, horrific. Could have been life shattering for her, but she chose to embrace it. And when we got serious in our relationship, which happened quickly, to share all the adversity that she went through, I look at her now and try to empower her to have her realize the strength that she has, because so many people, not lesser people at all, because that's judging how they're dealing with adversity. But so many people deal with similar or lesser adversities and turn to drugs or alcohol or some addiction of some sort, you name it. And I think we need to take pride in the fact that when we face adversity, as much as it sucks and hurts, and I've never woken up in the morning and go, all right, God, give me some challenges. I'm like, God, bless me with the strength, give me the ability to help and serve others. But I understand now that the challenges are not the enemy. It's an opportunity for growth, an opportunity to say, all right, who am I? Whose am I? What strength do I have? What experiences do I have to kind of think back on, be like, all right, hey, I've been here before. I can attack this challenge and to embrace it.
Kurt, awesome conversation. I know you've got another podcast you're going to go to here in about plus or minus about 10 minutes.
11
What,
minutes. Yeah, I'm good.
what, what have we not gotten into that you'd hoped we would have gotten into in the
How good
conversation?
looking I am. I want your listeners to understand I should be a model.
Yeah, so Kurt evidently has a very high sense of self. Yeah,
Yeah,
like
I don't know why, right? No,
there-
in all seriousness, I think one thing, and I hadn't thought about this, but thinking off the cuff that we haven't dove into, and I think I may have mentioned this earlier, so I apologize if not, but I struggled. The book took me so long to write, not because it's so long or so profound, but I really battled with and still do sometimes with imposter syndrome. And I think for any of your listeners, people are going to laugh at us, talk behind our back, mock us, ridicule us, and judge us no matter what we do. No matter what I look like, how much money I make, how many copies I sell, what type of car or truck I drive. So we have to not worry about that. And just if God or the universe, whatever it is your listeners believe in, put something on your heart, go for it. Just put it out there because I didn't. That's why it took me about 2.5 years to finally get the book published, because I kept on writing it, liking it, and then going back like, who's going to buy this? I joked around for years, Mike, saying I'm confident I'm going to sell 3 copies. My wife, my father, and my mother. Well, my dad passed away. God rest his soul. My mother is now almost legally blind, and I'm not putting the book out in Braille. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to sell 1 copy. But in all seriousness, I've been overwhelmed in just 48 hours. The very kind and generous responses from people that have purchased the book, or some have purchased it, haven't even received it yet. But it's been overwhelming in the sense that I didn't realize. I've had people that I taught my first year teaching who have this one woman I'm thinking of has 2 children of her own. I taught her, 28 years ago or 29 years ago, whatever. If God puts something on your heart, or something's put on your heart, run with it. And let God or the universe decide how it's going to affect other people. But I think more of us have more greatness in us than we realize, and we're just holding ourselves back. And the world needs us to share what's been placed within us.
you've at least sold 2 copies. Jem bought the print version. I bought the Kindle version. So you've at least sold 2. Somebody else listening to this is going to go get another one. So you're at least going to get to 3.
I love it.
I believe you'll get to you'll get to 3.
The funny thing is too that my publisher has sent me several screenshots now in just 48 hours of it being number 12 on the Amazon list, and then this morning he sent me a screenshot of number 1 on the list. Amazon's a funny place because it could be number one for the coaching world, but there's cooking and gardening and leadership and all these different things. It's been a wild ride so far, and just a fun one. Just conversations like this. And to be honest with you, I want to thank you sincerely, Mike, because I'm more excited now. I'm excited that when we hop off to call my wife and to tell her how this went, but I'm more excited to see and get a copy of my own book in my own hands now because it's been so long. You go through the process of writing a book, finding the right publisher that's a good fit, and then you go through the editing process where you're rereading your own things and hoping that it will touch or inspire someone in a way. And I do feel confident that it will resonate with, I hope, a good number of people.
Yeah, I have struggled with the whole writing thing. Like I've got just so many false starts, where you start doing it and then it sits out there in a Google Doc and there's parts of it and there's bits and pieces all over the place and you procrastinate or find other priorities or whatever. I've struggled with it. And one of the big struggles too is that whole imposter syndrome of what right do I have? Like who
Yeah.
really is going to want to read any of this as we go through it. So, what are some of the things that you did to help kind of overcome and break through it? So you broke through it and you did it, but what was the process stuff? What was the kind of the grind or the narrative that you had to tell yourself as you started going through and doing it?
Yeah.
Like what did that look like?
That's a great question. I'm a really big visual learner and goal-oriented person. I
Okay.
just started a new challenge with my son, who's 27 years old. We took our body fat percentages yesterday. He's in far better shape than I am, but I'm really excited about this next 6 month journey that we're going on together. So the process for the book, what I did was I just challenged myself and made a promise to myself. I think so often in life I'll say to myself, listen, if I can't keep my own word, who am I? What good am I? So what I did was on particular days, I would look at, or particular weeks usually, I would look at my week ahead. Like, all right, I have practice every day after school. I have a game on Friday. I've got this and that. Be like, listen, I can get 2 chapters done this week. And just set a goal for myself. I'm going to do two. And as you have a copy of the book, chapters aren't long. So for someone else, depending on the book they're writing, maybe it's going to be, hey, I'm going to get 2 paragraphs done this week. But I set out concrete, non-negotiable. Hey, I'm making a promise to myself. This week, I'm doing 2 chapters. Now, and then all of a sudden, Easter break comes by, and I'm like, all right, I got a lot of downtime. I'm going to write 6 chapters this week. So just holding ourselves accountable. I think so often we are better servants to our loved ones, to our wives and our children, our husbands, whatever. Because I won't break a promise to my wife. Well, that's great, and I shouldn't. But I need to start having the same relationship with myself and say, listen, if I'm going to promise myself I'm doing this, hold myself accountable. So that helped a lot.
Kurt, you're awesome. Thanks for doing this.
How are you? I appreciate you.
Where do you want people to go to connect up with you, pay attention to what you're doing? Where's the best place to send folks?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter more often than not. It's Coach Kurt Hines, KurtHines. But they can go to my website, which is also Coach Kurt Hines. I make it easy for anyone that wants to find me. It's all Coach Kurt Hines. So I have a website, CoachKurtHines.com, and they can find the book on my website or on Amazon. And it's funny because my wife years ago she had said to me, she's like, you don't need to respond to everyone that sends you a DM. And I remember looking at it and we had a really serious conversation. I said, well, I know I don't, but 2 questions. She's like, yeah. I said, first, does it bother you? Do you ever feel like it's taking time away from us? She's like, oh, not at all. I said, great, because that's most important to me. I said, secondly, why wouldn't I? Like, well, why wouldn't I? And one of the coolest things, I'll end my part with this real quick. When my father passed away about 2 years ago, I had done a video, and I remember seeing the video through tears. I had veins popping. I was just a mess. And I remember saying something to the effect of, I don't even know why I'm doing this. Maybe it's for my own therapy and dealing with this, or for someone else. But I think too often we share our successes in life and not our failures. And that moment in my life, it was the day after my father passed. I was at my lowest point, or one of my lowest. And the cool thing is, Mike, I had a woman that sent me a private message on Twitter that said that, and I had never connected with her before. I didn't know she was following me. And I'm paraphrasing, and I wouldn't say her name if I remembered it. I don't remember her name. But I remember that the message, she said she and her husband had a falling out with her adult son, and they hadn't spoken in 3 or 4 years. She sent the video to her son, and he reached out to him. For me, I was like, that's what it's about. Like that's leadership. That's servant leadership. That's what life is about. If we can be a not a crutch, not bubble wrap, but we can empower someone else and be a blessing for blessing for someone else. That's what gets me going. So
Well, thank you for coaching. Thank you for empowering. Thank you for being a blessing to others and to everyone and to me, and for getting the book out so that I could reach out to you and say, hey, it's been a while. Let's get on a podcast.
Yeah.
If you found this interesting, let us know. Let Kurt and I know via Twitter. If you know somebody else who would find it interesting, share it with them and let us know that via Twitter as well. Sales is a thinking process. Business is a thinking process. Life is a thinking process. How are you thinking differently about yours?